reducing the emission as low as possible.
Concerns have, however, been raised about the future of the dominating taxi and border industry, which are 100% fossil-powered and dependent on future oil output as the transportation sector shifts towards electric mobility.
Yeah, it's an opportunity because we really see that when the oil is there, then the fuel prices will actually go down. So we expect that if the fuel prices go down, then also the market can raise as well.
Similarly, significant financial and technological investment will be needed to realize the transition agenda in the manufacturing sector, which provided 1,279 billion Ugandan shillings, that's 23% for the first quarter of the current year of revenue.
So that waste is converted to energy in the different processes and also at the same time produces electricity. So that electricity can be connected to the grid and hence boost. Because industrialization involves a lot of electricity, which a lot of megawatts, which might not be just handled by solar, because solar, the electricity density is quite low. So we need big technologies that can help this.
It's still unclear how the transition to clean energy will be done in the midst of a profitable petrodollar market as the global fuel industry moves in an unexpected direction and rising economies struggle with supply issues.
That's regarding transition, that's to renewable energy. And definitely, as we know that the world is seems to be heading into some sort of an energy crisis. So such initiatives are quite key. If you have renewable energy, it will reduce the expenses, of course, depending on the surrounding, that's global circumstances. So that is something very, very, very key and inspirational. And of course, it's a very important call for the different Ugandans to really respond accordingly. That's to live right, of course, depending on the current economic status. All right, now we'll come to the end of the news recap this morning as we look at the integration of the East African community. And of course, to advance regional integration, the Ministry of East African Community Affairs held meetings, that's with the Ugandan Parliament's Parliamentary Committee on the East African Community Affairs. The Permanent Secretary for East African Community Affairs, that's Ms. Edith Mwaje, says there is need to sensitize, disseminate information about the integration agenda. Let's have the details of this report.
In view of ongoing global challenges that impact trade, the Action Matrix has taken on board cross-cutting issues, especially the emerging issues such as gender, SME, and environmental aspects of trade. The in-country donor community, that is the European Union, World Bank, and the Netherlands, have emphasized the need of assessing capacity gaps for all trade facilitating institutions with a view of having a clear picture of their needs and priorities. Also highlighting systematic recommendations in the last diagnostic trade integration studies that were not addressed. And thus key areas of funding include supporting Uganda in the multilateral and regional trading system, leveraging on trade opportunities, indirects and key trading partners, trade policy and regulatory regime, trade facilitation, MSMEs and trade finance, manufacturing sector growth and competitiveness of quality assurance. They also hinted on sanitary and phytosanitary services as well as e-commerce.
Only focusing on the targets of the wider, broader and specific areas of e-commerce, of the integrated approach, the integrated framework that we are looking at, and we are majorly focusing on the quality of the products that we are taking to the market and the way of accessing the market globally, and also uniting us to come up with the same standards of products and the ways of doing business. Because what we are targeting here is removing all the barriers of trade. And this study here is going to, in fact, has focused on setting us to priorities of trade.
The Minister of State for Trade, Harriet Ntabazi, underlined that because they are competing in a highly competitive market, traders must plan ahead to standardize their goods.
You can have the qualities, but can you supply them in quantities? If you can supply them in quantities for 1 month, are you consistent in the next month and the other month to follow? Can you supply for a year the same product, the same amount, and the same quality? It's a big challenge that we've always shared. In the EU Trade Summit, Trade and Investment Summit, one person gave testimony, won a tender in Dubai, but could not supply the market. They wanted goats, the goats of the same color, the same size, the same what, the same horns. Can you get those ones? So it depends on how you strategize and organize yourself.
An additional gap to measure for increased investment is the growth of border export zones and cross-border trade.
Borders had markets, but they were really informal markets. And, you know, there was a lot of informal trade going on there, and many losses in terms of revenue because people were just going across the borders in very, very stealth ways. They didn't, you know, people feared to even go through the proper channels to take goods across all our border areas. So there was a need to facilitate trade, especially to help the women traders, because they are mainly the people that carry those small merchandise across the borders. So the borders, border export zones have been built. It is just the beginning. Our target is having 18 or one-spot border posts. There we expect to have a market. We expect to have a daycare for the mothers who are also doing trade. We expect to have, trade desks where commercial officers can help people go through paperwork, if any. There a revenue area so that, everything is done.
According to reports from Ministry of Trade, there is a $50 million deficit to complete the work begun on border points such as Mpondwe, Busia, Malaba, and Raha.
Started, no? We have a deficit of $50 million US. That will help us complete because we have Busia, Raha, Mpondwe, Oraba, and Malaba. Did I mention Busia? Yes. So that is the deficit we have. But for the 18 targeted ones, the deficit will be about $110.2 million. That's the deficit. That's what we need.
It is unclear how the Ministry of Trade would address the systematic issues mentioned in various sectors of the report. For example, resource limitations, capacity constraints, and infrastructure challenges. Rona Nahabwe, Smart24 TV, Business Today.
That's a report regarding the trade, that's integration amongst the East African community countries. And of course, we see that it indicated the priority sectors. And of course, such information is quite very vital for the different traders out there. And also, above all, we see the European Union and the Netherlands government funding about $7 billion regarding this integration. All right, it's exactly 26 minutes past the hour of 7 a.m. And this is the SMB News Breakup. We've come to the end of it, and at this particular time, let's get into a short commercial break. We shall be returning with more business insights. Good morning.